Hey everybody, this is a video about the WildMind Deep Nature Immersion program that next year begins in March and concludes in September. And there's a few kind of key stages of that program that I want to speak to as a way of introducing the structure. Structure is really important. Perhaps it's critical really to the success of the program. And that's because the structure becomes part of the container. So consistency, understanding that there's a process that's unfolding allows us to kind of settle into it to whatever depth is appropriate for us, and to be consistent in the way that we show up, to be supported in a conversation that is evolving with our co-participants. And it gives us an understanding that there's a beginning and a middle and an end to this formal aspect of it, the part that I will be facilitating and offering and guiding you through, should you decide to come along. So the first thing that will be happening is we'll be gathering online in March, and that will start the kind of initiate the process. Before that, there'll be several opportunities to kind of jump online with me and other people who might be interested or considering it. Lots of people consider this. Year after year, I get messages from the same people every year saying, yes, sounds amazing, I'm definitely going to do it. And then as it gets closer, they're like, oh, maybe next year. Because it's a big thing to do, so that's totally understandable. The program has evolved over the years. It's never been the same twice, but this year is a major evolution in terms of it's now going to officially be over 6 months. I think in many ways, bits and pieces of it have been happening over more than 6 months for the past 3 or 4 years, really, with people gathering in council after the event and maybe a couple of times beforehand, but it's all been a bit kind of informal and me responding to what seems to be wanted in the moment, and now I'm kind of formalizing that process. So there's going to be some online questions and answers, and me talking about WildMind, deep eco-psychology, and my understanding of these different layers of consciousness that we have access to and can align ourselves with and utilize as resource states, depending on what's happening in our lives and what we might need to be paying attention to at any particular threshold. And then after that, as I say, we're going to be gathering online in March to convene and to begin the process of honing and carving our intentions. And that takes a while, because it's not until that we kind of start the journey that our psyche really responds and goes, all right, okay, you're serious. Because this is a different kind of space than our everyday kind of consciousness, right? We're stepping into a space that holds depth and will travel at depth over distance. And so it's not until we start getting in the water, so to speak, that our psyche starts responding and saying, okay, right, so in this context, these are the resources that I need to constellate and start to bring forward. And that changes the quality of the conversation. It might not always change the content and the intention, but it changes the quality with which we are able to hold that and perceive that and journey with that. And so you might start to understand why it's important to begin before we begin. The crux, as I like to call it, or as I started calling it, like the depth of the deep end, is of course the 13-day time that we spend here in Scotland, along the Moray Firth. I mean, we're here, I don't know what the day is today. Oh, it's the 29th of November, I think, and it's a Wednesday. So this is what it looks like. The sun is about to set somewhere over there. It rose somewhere over there. In midsummer, when we'll be here, the sun will rise here, and you'll see it go in an arc across the sky, and it will set over there. So it's a really dynamic and very alive environment here, where you can, if you're paying attention, tracking the sun and the moon, etc., you can see the arcs of the planets because it's happening on the horizon in front of you. So that's happening here over midsummer. And the actual fast, the 4 days and 4 nights solo fasting, just drinking water, that will be happening over summer solstice. In this part of the world at summer solstice, the sun will rise there at about 3:20 a.m. and it will set somewhere over there at about 10:20 p.m. And if you decide to sit up and watch it all night, you will just see it dip ever so slightly below the horizon, and it never really gets dark. If it's really cloudy, it might be dark, but otherwise it will be this kind of wonderful twilight that you'll get to witness and participate in. So that's the kind of the crux of it. So as I said, online stuff, just to recap briefly as I go through, I like to do this so people can keep up. You don't have to think about it all the time. Online stuff, Q&As, those people who decide to sign up and step in, that formally begins in March. And then we start the journey together, honing our intentions, getting clearer as we go, so that as we approach our time here together in Scotland, we have a sense of community, we have a sense of our intentions, and not just what our intentions are, but how we are holding them, whether we're like, yeah, absolutely, this is as clear as I'm ever going to be about anything, and this is my intention, or whether we're like, yeah, you know, there's 2 or 3 things that I really feel are resonant for me at the moment, and one of them is going to step forward and kind of take me on the journey, and I'm not sure which one. So there's lots of different ways we can arrive and approach it, but the more preparation we do, psychological and emotional preparation, conversations with ourselves, and these emergent parts that start to stir and step forward, makes a huge difference. So we're not just arriving here and then it takes us, 2 days to kind of be like, oh shit, what am I doing? Why did I sign up for this for? We've got a sense of connection with other people. We've deepened the connection with ourselves. We've relaxed into that space. We're starting to find our voice in this cohort, in relationship to this specific event. And that makes it richer. The people who have spent time in this way with me previously say it made all the difference. I've worked with people who've done this, Findhorn Beach it's just amazing for pebbles. Look at that. Who've done the short version, which is, people sign up, we have a brief chat online, maybe for 20 minutes, half an hour before they arrive, and then they arrive, and then we're in it and we're doing it. And that really is a very quick transition. It's possible to do that, obviously, because that's how most people do it. But it's better to build up to it and allow ourselves to kind of ease ourselves into the process so that we can attune to what it means to relax and inhabit our nervous system, essentially. And one of the things that is unique about WildMind Deep Eco Psychology in relationship to this is that I have a very embodied approach to it. So there'll be skills, practices, daily practices that I would encourage people to do on their way into this. So you're not having to learn those supportive practices, resourcing practices, while you're actually in the middle of the thing itself, that you've already got those on board and have cultivated your own versions of them. And then March and then into our time here, it's 12 full days over 13 days, lunchtime to lunchtime. And an important thing to say about that is that this year, although it has been informally happening to a small degree on previous years with people who've attended last year's Deep Nature Immersion, I've come along to help make lunch and serve lunch to the people who are arriving this year. This year, I believe last year's cohort are organising to come for 3 or 4 days, maybe 5 days before the formal start of this year's event, so that they can spend a 24-hour period out on the land for themselves, kind of revisit and close their year out more formally with each other. They've really formed a tight bond and are in communication, kind of building their own sense of community outside of the program, which I'm delighted about. It makes such a difference to people over time to be able to reflect on and remind each other of where they were and what they were doing, and have that deep shared experience, right? That's where strong human bonds are formed, are in meaningful experiences, and they get to continue to nourish us in that way. So they'll be here from maybe the Sunday, and then we'll begin formally on the Thursday, and they will be here to welcome in this year's cohort. So you'll have people fresh from the land, eyes sparkling, really attuned to that space to welcome you in, and that will help you land here. You won't just be listening to me bang on and kind of talk you through what might be happening. You'll have other people that you can ask questions of and speak to I won't say reassure you, because that's not their job, but to just speak meaningfully to their own experience perhaps, and share the kinds of things that you might connect with, and the kinds of shifts in consciousness that you might experience as a consequence of it. And it's good to have a rich description, right? It's good to have more than one person saying, oh, it might be this, it might be that. It's good to have several people say, well, it wasn't like that for me, it was like this. Because that allows us to enrich our maps and our understanding of what's possible, and it helps us relax into it and trust we don't really know what it's going to be like for us until we're on the way. So it gives us a sense of trusting in the larger process and the larger experience over time, rather than just thinking it's about the 13 days here, because that is a very, very powerful part of it, but it is also really a catalyst for a much larger, deeper, more expansive journey that continues to unfold after the actual event. So after the 13 days here, everyone will return wherever they came from, and that's when we start the incorporation process. So there's an enormous amount of just energy, I'm going to say, that people take from here. There's such a richness to the experience that really infuses us and enlivens us to return to our lives. And obviously we talk about that before we leave here and what that might be like. But then you go back and you start living your life, and you start this incorporation process. And at that point, we will continue our time in council for 3 months, so that you will continue to speak to the people that you underwent the Deep Nature Immersion with, and keep that conversation contained amongst yourselves, so that you can keep harvesting and harnessing. And maybe it's dreams that are showing up for you, and you want to get some mirroring and share some of your dreams with people who have a similar understanding of them, a similar relationship to those phenomena, and those ways that we learn about ourselves and can receive deeper insights and wisdom about our particular callings, our particular challenges, etc., and access our deeper resources. And then in September we'll close out. We'll have I'll be closing that circle along with this year's cohort, and then you will be part of the WildMind Deep Nature Immersion community. And my expectation is, what I think is beginning to happen around this work here, I mean, it's probably the 7th or 8th year, I can't quite remember, is that people who have attended previously are starting to come together to speak to each other and to build a sense of relationship with each other. And they might organise their own meetings. They might give me a shout and say, hey, do you fancy putting a weekend together with us? I don't know, somewhere in the UK or maybe even abroad, where we can all get together and we can maybe do a 24-hour solo, and we can revisit some of this stuff and refresh and renew our connection to our experience here and continue to harvest its emergent wisdom. So that's a little bit about the process and the structure and the reasons for those various bits and the potential of those various bits. And really, for all of the words that I've written about it, and I know I've written a lot, I always think maybe a bit too much, it's really an invitation for you to meet yourself. And every single human being has a different outlook, a different set of perceptual filters, different needs, longings, wants, desires, as they should. Different challenges, different limitations, different things that we're carrying, some trauma, some loss, some confusion. That's part of the nature of being a human being, is that we're not fixed and rigid, and we do not know pretty much anything about the deeper realms of consciousness. But we are sure as hell called to show up for that every day to the best of our ability. And so my job is to guide you in cultivating that relationship with yourself in your own way, cognitively. Your cognitive rational intellect is incredibly powerful, and sometimes it is holding maps and models of the past that serve us very well in terms of society and culture, but it also has this capacity to imagine different possibilities for the future, and to vision different things and to start to bridge the gap between the two intellectually. And then there's the emotional layer of our understanding of ourselves, these kind of emotional experiences that come to us. Sometimes we don't know where they're from, and often we would prefer that they didn't come visit us at all, because sometimes emotions are difficult, painful, confusing, sometimes overwhelming. And then beneath that layer of emotion, we have the resonant felt sense, the somatic, or we might say pre-verbal layer of intelligence, which is purely physiological sensation. And it doesn't necessarily have to be associated with a feeling, though often it is, and it doesn't have to be associated with a thought, although it can be. And then beneath that layer of our intelligence, we have the resonant felt sense, which extends out from us and, of course, is attuned to the natural world. So WildMind Deep Eco-Psychology operates and unfolds across these 4 different layers, understanding that they're not really layers, that they are more of a quantum field of experience that we are orienting ourselves within and through every day, whether we're conscious of that or not. So this is my job is to help us build our own ways of doing that cultivate our courage, we might call it, and our sense of purpose and our sense of what would be truly fulfilling for us, and to be able to ask questions that stimulate a deeper response than we might perhaps have thought we were capable of meeting in ourselves. Who are we beyond our role identities, beyond the masks that we wear in the social arena, or the social arenas that we have to inhabit to earn money, to be in relationship with other people? Who else are we beneath those role identities, beneath those provisional identities? Who's really at home deep down within us, and what needs and desires and creative gifts might be waiting there to be expressed, and how do we bring them forward? How do we bring them forward? How do we allow ourselves to be witnessed and blessed as we often in our messiness struggle to excavate these aspects of ourselves and bring them forward with conviction, and kind of apprenticing ourselves in our clumsy ways to do that? That's my job, is to guide that process and to help bring understanding to the kinds of things that might be happening in various scenarios without being in any way fundamentalist about it, and encouraging you to cultivate your own versions of these questions, and to attune your inquiry to who you are at this point in your life, and to help you get clear about the direction that you want to sail in, and then support you in heading off confidently in that direction, understanding that there's going to be a little flotilla of people either side of you sailing out on this beautiful ocean too. So that's a little bit about the process and my kind of perspective on that at this point. As I say, we're at the end of November. The registration packs are available if you want to request one. Several people have, and in the next wee while, I'll say the next couple of weeks, I hope to get online with some of you who are interested and have the first of these Q&A things, so that come January, we're kind of the other side of the winter solstice, Christmas, New Year, all that stuff that happens, and we can kind of land in the new year thinking, yeah, okay, now what's the next big thing that I've got going on? Okay, well, March, I'm going to be stepping into this process and starting to get an idea of who else might be alongside me. Okay, thanks for listening. Ciao for now. Enjoy our last little glimpse of the Murray Firth.